Hello, I'm Tony Horgan. Thank you for watching. This is my book, How Drum Machines Work, a Simple Guide. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the patterns and drum beats from the Drum Beats and Patterns chapter. There will be about 38, I think, that I'm going to show you in this video, so it's quite a long video. The book is available from Amazon in paperback format and hardcover, and also as an ebook from Google Play Books and Apple Books. In the book, we talk about all of the things that you would find on a drum machine. This is a lovely drum machine here. And you would find all the things that you would find on the back. We talk about connections, and we talk about how to do all the things that you like to do and have fun doing them. So it's not a very technical book. It's a very fun book, as you can probably guess from the cover. So we're going to get straight into the beats, and I will see you in a moment. Firecracker. I've designed this one to be used with 808 sounds, and I've called it Firecracker because it kind of fizzes off in a lot of different directions with claps and little kind of rolls on the hi-hats, sort of trap style rolls, or ratchets as they're called sometimes. So to play it the way that I'm playing it here, you could use a Roland TR 808 or some kind of emulation of that. But you can use, as with all of the patterns in this video and in the book, you can use all sorts of different drum sounds and drum kits, and they'll take on a completely different vibe and flavour depending on the sound. Poetic license. This one is still quite low in tempo. It's 80 BPM, so we're around the typical tempo for rap and that kind of thing, that kind of style. But as you'll hear from the demo that I've made of it, you can use it to go into lots of different styles. So it starts off sounding quite typically rap, R&B, and then gets quite cinematic once I put some strings and arpeggios over the top of it. So yeah, take them in any direction you like. Still Waters. This one is down at the 80 BPM range. We're going to get faster as the video goes on. It uses 32 steps rather than the standard 16 steps. And in this case, that allows us to play around with the snare drum on the second part of the pattern. So let's see how it sounds. I've used quite short, crispy sounds. You can use any sounds you like and it will change the vibe quite a lot. Beating Heart. Here's another example of how when you change the sounds, the feel and the vibe of a rhythm can change quite a lot. It's very simple, this one. It just has, in here I've specified a kick, a snare and hi-hats. You can take the interpretation of a snare drum as any kind of hard, percussive, mid-range, high frequency sound. So as you'll hear in these demos, I've used different kinds of sounds where I've placed the snare. And the hi-hat, again, the open hi-hat, I've used different kinds of sounds that are a bit like an open hi-hat. So the snare drum and the hi-hat they work together to make a kind of a splash sound like this, whereas the beating heart sound that I allude to in the title comes from the bass drum. Okay, let's try it. This one is called Easy Rap Backing. So even though I keep saying in this video you can use these in all sorts of different styles, I thought I'd put one in so you can just quickly flick to it, and if you just want something to program in really quickly as a basis for a rap, you can do this, and then if you want at any point you can change it for something else. But here you go, just turn to this page for an easy rap backing. This one is called False Start. The reason I call it False Start is because unlike all the other beats in the book, this one doesn't have a kick drum on the first step. So I don't know if we can see here. The first step is blank on the kick drum track. So usually you would have a kick drum on step one of your pattern. It will go, it starts everything off boom chicka 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 boom chicka chicka chicka, or whatever. Okay, in this case it doesn't, so it just it gives it something a little different. In order to make this work, you would probably want to have some other kind of strong sound in your track coming down on that first beat. So it might be a melodic element or it might be a vocal element, just so that the listener knows where the beat is, where they are in the beat. Okay, this is how it sounds. Spring Back. The reason I call this one Spring Back is because it has a signature sound on the last step of the 16. So it plays through the beat, and then it has this, in this case, a cowbell ding just before it resets and comes back to the kick drum. You could use any kind of what I would call a signature sound, so a slightly different sound to what you would normally find in a regular drum kit, and have it on the last step of the 16, and it just kind of bounces off the kick drum, or rather the kick drum kind of bounces off that signature sound. Brixton Soul. This is a reference to the South London sound system soul collective called Soul to Soul, who came to prominence in the charts in the late 80s. They used this beat in a couple of their tracks, and after that, then it became very popular in a lot of pop music and pop dance music in the late 80s and early 90s. It goes back to at least the mid-70s, and you can still hear it now in various styles in pop and rap and hip-hop kind of stuff. So let's see how it sounds. Reggaeton. This is an instantly recognisable beat. If you don't know the name, you will recognise the beat as soon as you hear it. I guarantee it. You can use it in lots of different styles, and all you need really is two sounds, something like a kick drum and something like a snare drum. It's that simple, and then you can do all kinds of things over the top of it and have lots of fun. This is how it sounds. Diddley. This beat was made famous by Diddley, the pioneering blues rock and roll artist. So you'll hear this same kind of rhythm used in lots of different pop and rock and different kinds of tracks. I'll name a few for you, such as, what have we got? George Michael, Faith, or The Cure, Close to Me, U2, Desire, Primal Scream, Moving On Up. Even Ed Sheeran, Overpass Graffiti has a kind of slightly simplified version of it. This is what it sounds like. I'm sure you'll recognise it. I call this one Spaced Out because it's quite minimal. It's at 100 BPM, so it's low tempo, kind of mid tempo you might say. And if you choose the right sounds, then this beat can sound pretty good just as it is. So that's the idea of spaced out, meaning the drum sounds are quite spaced out. There's a lot of space between them. So you don't always have to have a very busy drum pattern if you choose some good sounds, and then you can bring the drums up into the fore of the mix. And sometimes when you have fewer drum sounds, you can raise the overall presence and level of the drums in the mix without overcrowding the mix of the rest of the track. This is how it can sound. I call this one Uchi Mata. It is a 32-step pattern, and that allows us to make a pretty much completely different kick drum pattern on the second lot of 16, so the second bar. And the other thing we're doing here is we're combining a snare and a clap on the same step, so we get a stronger, crunchier, punchier tsh, tsh. This one is called Boom Chicka because it sounds, to me, it sounds like this. Boom chicka boom chicka boom ch boom ch boom 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 chicka boom ch boom ch boom. Transmission. This one uses 32 steps. Even though it's a very simple beat, the reason we use 32 steps is so we can get the double bass drum hit at the start without it repeating too quickly. This one is called Closing Door, and it's at 120 BPM. Funky House. This one is at 120 BPM, but you could put it up to anywhere between 120 and 130 beats per minute. And it uses swing or shuffle, depending on how your drum machine labels this control, to change the timing of the even numbered steps. This is something that you would hear generally on hi-hats or shakers, and it changes the timing. So instead of just a you get high voltage. This one has a bass drum that jumps around all over the place, and it has a snare drum that keeps a steady, regular rhythm. So we talk about this in the book. If the bass drum keeps a regular rhythm or the snare drum keeps a regular rhythm, you can put the other one pretty much anywhere you want. Generally keep a bass drum on step 1. So in this one, we've got the snare drum keeping things nice and regular. That keeps us fixed on where the beat is, and then the bass drum is free to bounce around. Mr. Tom. I call this one Mr. Tom because it uses 3 toms. So there are 3 things you need to do this beat just as I've done it. You need 3 toms, so a high tom, a mid tom and a low tom. So they're the same kind of sounds but just tuned to different notes. And you need a swing or a shuffle control. So instead of things just being straight, they're like this. And you need, ideally, a flam control. So that allows you to play a grace note on a drum. Just before the main note, it gets a little hit. I'll demonstrate on my knee if I can. So I'm no drummer, and drummers will show you how to do this properly, but this would be a regular hit, and this would be with a flam. So regular hit once, and with a flam, and you can adjust the flam time quite often, the time between the first and the second hit. So boom, boom, doop, doop, doop. There we go. Let's see how it really sounds on a drum machine. Big Bang Theory. Try this one with some big banging sounds or some kind of distinctive sounds. I've suggested you keep it very simple and just keep it to the kick, the snare, and the very simple hi-hat pattern. And you could let it's the kind of beat that you could let the sounds define quite a lot. Sell the Sizzle. I call this one Sell the Sizzle because in this example I'm using Roland TR-808 hand claps to bounce off the bass drum. The hand claps are going on the regular steps. The bass drum is in a more irregular pattern, but that's fine because the hand claps are keeping it steady. And then we have a nice little hi-hat line that you can use in other beats in the book in all sorts of different tempos. Jackpot. This beat uses pre-tuned congas and ideally delay and reverb on different sounds to create a driving, energetic pop dance kind of beat. Triple ripple. I've shown two different tempo settings for all of the patterns that use this kind of triplet groove. A lot of the Roland machines have a scale feature which allows you to set the tempo to be timed for triplets or different time signatures. So the tempo for this beat, the real tempo is 107 BPM. But if you don't have a scale feature, then keep to the regular 4/4 setting that you would have on your drum machine and set the tempo to 80 BPM, which is about the same. Semaphore. This one is quite good fun. It's based on a kind of a 32-step 4/4 beat, but it's got one beat taken off the end, so it loops just a bit sooner than you were expecting. So we can have a look. So you can see it's kind of based on 32 there. And then if we zoom in, hopefully you can see there that it stops at 28, step 28. So the kick drums are going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But then once they get to 7, they go back again. You don't get the 8th one. Do the math. I call this one Do the Math because it uses a rather unusual kind of format where we have a 4 and a 4 and a 6. So the whole pattern length is 14 steps long. Humpty Dumpty. This one is a bit of a joke name, really. It makes it sound quite childish, but the reason I call it Humpty Dumpty is because if you were to chant Humpty Dumpty, as in Humpty Dumpty in the nursery rhyme, then you would be chanting in the kind of rhythm, the rhythmic pattern of this beat. But you can hear these different examples of these in a lot of music. So, for example, Pharrell Williams and Travis Scott, Down in Atlanta, or Sam Smith, Disclosure, Latch. You can hear the same kind of groove. So here's an example. Stop, go. I call this one Stop, Go because it feels like the second part of the pattern is a bit longer than the first part of the pattern. Freehand Freefall. This one uses the triplet groove again, and it has some swing on the hi-hats, which is an important part. I think the absence of a bass drum towards the end of the beat helps the groove sort of define the groove. So it's got 3 bass drums, and then the bass drum drops out, and then it repeats again. Dub Shuffle. This one is made to be played as a kind of 4/4 beat, but we've deliberately made it out of just chunks of 3, so you can play along to it as if it's a regular 4/4 beat. But what's going to happen is apart from the kick drum, the other elements are going to shift in time. If you've got a delay feature that you can put the side stick through, so much the better. Mind the Gap. The reason I've called this one Mind the Gap is because rearranging the kick drums towards the end of the pattern gives it a bit of a kind of a skip, like you're going like this and then you have to do a little skip at the end of it to get back to the start of the loop. Again, it's another triplet one, so that means you can either use a triplet scale with the proper tempo of 140 BPM, or you could just use a regular 4/4 scale if you don't have that feature, and set the tempo at 106 BPM. Glam Flam. This is called Glam Flam because it's a kind of glam rock sort of feel. Maybe late 70s, maybe 1980 kind of rock. The sort of rock that would cross over slightly into disco territory, sort of danceable stuff. And it uses a flam on the snare, which gives it that kind of glam rock sound. (3-3-2). Even though this pattern is actually 4/4, it sounds like it's made up of steps of 3, 3 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And unusually the snare drum hits on the first step of the beat, and every kick drum or bass drum hits as well. Hard hitter. Now we're up to 138 BPM, so it's a high tempo hard dance beat. These are quite easy to make compared to a lot of the other rhythms, because you've got the bass drum going boom 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 boom, you've got something like a snare or a clap going on every alternate bass drum. Rave Cave. As with the previous beat, Hard Hitter, this one is at 138 BPM. It's a similar kind of vibe. We're using 909 toms, Roland TR 909 toms here, to create a kind of bass line. They're just hitting 2 steps before each kick drum, so it goes boom, ba ba boom, ba ba boom, ba ba boom, but a lot faster than that. Boom, dig ding, dig ding, dig ding, dig. We're also using a bit of distortion here and there, and we're going to put some rave stuff over the top. Double bubble. I've called this one double bubble because to make it work properly you need to have an accent control that allows you to play 2 levels of kick drum, so a loud kick drum and a quieter kick drum. Otherwise, if you just place all the kick drums on the steps as they're shown at the same level, it's going to sound a bit crass. So some of them are stronger and some of them are quieter, so you get a bit of a bounce. basic drum and bass. There's not a whole lot to say about this one because it's very simple. Most drum and bass beats are based on a kick drum and a snare drum going like this. Once you've got that down, everything else is going to sound good. So just get that down and then you can work from there. Drum and bass / hip hop. This one can be played at 2 tempos. It kind of illustrates how a lot of drum and bass beats came out of hip hop beats played at double speed. So if you play it at 170 BPM, it sounds like drum and bass. If you play it at 85 BPM, it sounds like hip hop or rap, but the rhythm is really the same, as you will see, because everything's programmed the same. We're just halving the tempo. Simply the Vest. I've saved this one till last because it's one of the highest tempo beats in the book, and also it's one of the longest. It's a 64-step pattern. So you will see that the pattern is quite repetitive. So you might think, why do we need 64 steps? Couldn't we just do that in 16? Well, what happens is we omit the kick drum from the first step of the 4th bar. And it's only a small change, but it does have quite a big effect on the sound of the beat. It's a great beat for pop, rock, crossover stuff, synth wave, synth pop, that kind of thing.
If it's love that you need, you can take it from me, 'cause I'm the one who's giving it up. And I know it's been hard, but you made it this far. No, I'm the one who's giving it up.